Hey friends and book lovers, welcome or welcome back. Today's video is one that I really enjoy doing, and that is my top books of 2021. So I do one of these every year for the year previous. I talk about all the books that I really enjoyed that were my absolute top for that previous year, and so today we're discussing those top books for 2021. This is going to be a combination of both series and then just standalone books themselves, because in a series I can't always pick my absolute favorite and I feel like the whole series is worth it. I might have like one book in that series that I love above all others, but then the whole series tends to be really good on its own and in itself as well. So I definitely have series, but then I also have standalones, so I will talk about all of those in this video. I didn't have like a top 10 or a top 5 number. This is just the books that I really enjoyed from last year, and there's about like 7 kind of categories of series and standalones. Not categories, but there's about 7 kinds of like books and series that are in this list, so I hope that you enjoy. I had what feels like a really good reading year in 2021. I feel like I read so many good books that it was kind of hard to choose ones that I really loved above all others, so I couldn't narrow it down to 5, but I also felt like I couldn't expand it to 10, so we are here at 7 and I have no regrets. And these are in no particular order, so I don't have like a favorite among these. I don't even want to think about choosing a favorite among these. I just love them all for different reasons, and I think they're all worth the read. So if you haven't read some of these and you're curious about them, definitely check this video out. I hope that I can convince you to read some of my favorite books from 2021. So the first one I'll talk about is one that I read during the last quarter of the year, and that is the Green Bone Saga. This is Jade City, and I read all 3 books, one a month starting in October to get ready for Jade Legacy, which came out in December, and I read that one in December when it came out as well. Actually, it came out November 30th, but for me, it came out December because I read it in December because it came out so late in November. Either way, I was really on the fence about this one because I haven't really read a lot of books with mafia in them, and I wasn't really sure what I would enjoy about this, but this series lives up to all of the hype that it has. And the last book, though I thought the time jumps were a little confusing, really does a beautiful job of spanning the story and closing it out. And honestly, I would totally love to read more little novellas that Fonda Lee might release in this world. I love this world. I love the characters. I'm really attached to the characters. So whenever something would happen to any of them, my heart would just seize in my chest because I would be so incredibly worried about all these characters, and that is the real on these things. So it's been an arduous road, but I absolutely love this series and I think it's amazing. If you haven't read the Green Bone Saga and you're on the fence about it like I was, definitely check this out. I think I gave most of these books 5 stars. If not 5, then definitely 4 or 4.5, but I love them. I have the special Illumicrate editions and I regret nothing. And yeah, this is just definitely Hong Kong mafia vibes. Beautiful, you know, lore, beautiful use of magic. I love the use of jade and how it's just so central to the story. And I love how the world is kind of modern like our own and kind of grows with the times, and you see these traditions and values change with the evolving world, and it's just wild. And it's just so like on the nose for how it relates to our world too. So I thought it was so good. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. And if you've read this series, definitely let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear about it. So this one was a spin-off to another series that I was really enjoying. I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about this one either, but it really won me over. And this is the first in the Flesh and Fire series. It's called A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, I feel like From Blood and Ash should be on this list, and it is good and I do enjoy those books, but I loved A Shadow in the Ember more than the From Blood and Ash books. I loved Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which is a From Blood and Ash novel. It was great, but I just loved this one. You have to read the From Blood and Ash books to understand what's going on in this one. It's just part of the world, it's part of the lore. but I loved this one. This one was so good. It was so unput-downable for me. I think because I could relate or enjoyed the heroine and the main female character in this one much more than Poppy in From Blood and Ash, I just had a better time with it. I think that's what it comes down to. I just think I enjoyed the main female character in this one that much more. And I also enjoyed the story. It was just so much different. And I don't know, like there was just something. I loved this book, and I honestly cannot wait for the sequels in this series. It's funny because usually I'm not as into the spin-offs as I am into the original stories, but I love this spin-off. I think it's great. If you like the From Blood and Ash books, I think you probably loved this one even more. It has the badass female character. It has the all-powerful but still like kind of humble male character, and it has a world that is really rich with lore and really rich with history and entanglements and all these different levels of beings, and it's just so cool. And I love this one. I think, yeah, it's definitely a favorite of the year, and I read this in November when it came out, so it's also a recent read, but I have no regrets at all. And I feel like the From Blood and Ash fans that I read it with will agree with me. I think we all really loved this one even more than From Blood and Ash. So that was a crazy discovery, but a really great one. And this next one is not a fantasy novel, I know, but it still makes the mark of top books in 2021. I read this on audio, and I'm honestly so glad that I did. I think it's more impactful on audio because the author reads it and it's in poetry or poetic form, a poem form, and it is just a book that is written in a different format. It's just really beautifully done, and hearing the author speak this into the audiobook is so impactful. I recommend this to everyone that is interested in contemporary, that is interested in more poetry, and that is Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. She has also become a new favorite author of mine. I've read another book from her and that was amazing as well, but this one takes the cake. I need to have the audiobook version of this. It is a really quick audiobook. It's like 4 hours regular time, and if you speed it up twice, it's only a couple hours, and it's such a beautiful story, and it's just said so passionately. And I just think that as a reader that doesn't read a lot of audiobooks, this one was so impactful and so emotional and so powerful that it's really worth it. Even if you don't like audiobooks, just like me, I don't love audiobooks, so it's hard for me to get into them and to really pay attention to the story. But this author just has this beautiful way of verbally saying her story, and she is a poetry slam champion, so of course she's had some practice in how to convey herself verbally, and it is beautiful. It is worth it, and honestly one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to. So this next one is a series, but I do have a favorite book within this series, and that is the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy. I'm holding up the box set because these guys are really hard to get in and out of the box set. I loved the first and second one, and I really enjoyed the third book in this, but I feel like my favorite is definitely The Wall of Ascension. I know that's kind of an unpopular opinion because everyone really enjoys either Final Empire or Hero of Ages because of that ending, and the ending is incredible. But I loved Wall of Ascension. One of my favorite characters is in Wall of Ascension, and I really enjoy him. His arc in Wall of Ascension is just spectacular, and I just love watching it happen. The political maneuvering and intrigue in that novel is just really great and well done, and the pacing is really well done. It's not an action-packed novel, it's a political novel more so than that, but it's still well paced where I was really interested and I loved every second of reading it. And I love this series. It was great. Definitely one that I want to reread because I think as you read this, you gain more insight. And I know that Brandon Sanderson drops his little Easter eggs all over his Cosmere world. So this is definitely one that I will have to reread eventually, but Well of Ascension, I'm looking forward to rereading that already. It's just so good. And The Final Empire, it's true what they say, it's a beautifully well-contained story. If you just stop there and pause the series for a little while, you could definitely do that. I did that myself. And then Hero of Ages has this crazy ending, which I do wonder if that's going to tie into Era 2 of the Mistborn series, so we will see, because I kind of hope it does, because it would be really cool to see that again, but we will see. Either case though, I really enjoyed the series. Everyone has read it, I know. I was the last one to read it, but it was worth it, and it was really another great way of checking out Brandon Sanderson's works. And now I've read, you know, many of his works, and I'm diving into the Stormlight Archives this year, but it's really great to have Mistborn under my belt. So when I dive into the Stormlight Archives, I will have some context, which I think is important for that huge series. Another series and trilogy that I was compelled to read by some lovely booktube friends over the summer. I honestly was supposed to space this out one book a month, but I couldn't, and I ended up binge reading the series, and that was the Daevabad trilogy, and this is the first one, The City of Brass. I absolutely love the US covers. I know someone's gonna fight me on that. That's fine, you can fight me on it, but I still love the US covers. I think they're beautiful, and this series is incredible. I remember hearing about this series when it first came out and not feeling too excited about it, feeling very lukewarm, like, yeah, sure, I'll try it, but you know, I don't know, we'll see. But it's honestly really good. City of Brass hooked me in, and I honestly really enjoyed the whole ride. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It was fun to read about lore that's not European or North American focused, that is focused in a different part of the world. And it's really cool to learn about all those things because they are, at least parts of them, are part of actual real world mythology and lore in that part of the world. This was great. If you're thinking of reading this, I strongly suggest it. It does also have a, you know, romance plot in here. It's not fantasy romance per se, but there is a romantic plot, and that is fun and adds to the story if you're interested in that. Otherwise, it's a very solid epic fantasy trilogy, and the novellas for this series are coming out in 2022, so I also can't wait to read those. I have a video of all my anticipated releases that are coming out this year so far, so I'll link that up above and in the description down below in case you wanted to check that out. But this series will definitely be having like a novella post-trilogy book coming out that the author is releasing, so we get to visit, maybe get to visit some of our favorite characters from the Daevabad series, so I'm very excited. And this series was definitely worth it. It was really rich, but really exciting. I was definitely very invested in the characters and the plot, and there was a lot of really great twists and turns that I wasn't quite expecting, so it was awesome, and it definitely gets deep in the lore of the world, which I love. And this next one should come as no surprise to anyone. Those of you that are watching this video, like, where is this series? She's talked about this series on her channel over multiple videos. I did like a recap, I did a review, I did a live show. It's just been everywhere because I fell in love with this series, and I wasn't expecting to be so swept away. I don't think I binge read it, but I definitely like held off binge reading it because I had so many other books and it was supposed to be a buddy read, but I just couldn't stop. And that would be the Winnowing Flame trilogy. This is the Poison Song, the last one in the trilogy, and honestly one of the best conclusions to a series or a trilogy that I've ever read. It's so good. I've tabbed the crap out of it. I love the writing style. I love the storytelling style. I love the characters. I love the elements of horror, thriller, sci-fi, and this awesome fantasy. I just feel like she did something really creative in the genre that I haven't seen before. It kind of reminded me of like a mix of like certain elements from Blood and Ash in terms of storytelling, and then elements of the Broken Earth series in terms of getting sci-fi elements into a fantasy series. I felt like they were very similar in that sense, but not too similar that they're the same story, because they are not. None of them are the same story. And this series is again one that I have never encountered before, and it's just so good. I have so many videos. I have a live show that's definitely worth watching, and I have a spoiler-free review video that I'll link all up above and down below, so you guys can check that out if you're not totally sold on the Winnowing Flame. But if you're not totally sold on the Winnowing Flame, what are you doing? You need to check out my videos. You should check out Elle Brooks's videos because she loves this series, and also Patrick Leo. He's who I found out about the series from first, and I ended up wanting to read it and dove into it, and honestly, it's so good. I can't rave enough about this series, but it is just so amazing, and I can't wait to reread it because it's so rich, and I know I'm gonna discover different types of foreshadowing elements in the first book that I probably didn't even notice in it when I was reading it because I didn't know what was gonna happen. And now that I do, it's just gonna be even more crazy to read. But I loved it. I loved where it took us, and I wasn't expecting half the things that happened in this trilogy. It was just wild, and it blew my mind. The last book in this list series is not a series itself, but it's a book that I was really highly anticipating last year, and that is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I know we were not gonna get a top books of the year without including this one. I love Nesta. I relate to her on a level that's very personal in some ways, and I loved seeing her arc in this. It is a very smutty novel as well. It's a fantasy romance, so it's very smutty, it's very adult, but I loved seeing the growth of Nesta, and I love Cassian. So it's those two characters in this world together and the focus of the book. I was just so excited. I know everyone loves Farah and Rhysand, and they're great too, but Nesta and Cassian are my current fave, and they were even when I was reading the original ACOTAR trilogy. I loved this. I thought it was amazing. Obviously, there are certain parts about the book that I wish were more fleshed out, a little better, but I give it 5 stars just because of the emotional impact of relating to a character the way that I relate to Nesta. I know people don't like her, and that's completely fine. I totally understand why. She's not everyone's cup of tea, but she's definitely my cup of whiskey. So ooh, it was really good. I loved this. The people that I read it with also loved it, so it was really fun to buddy read, and I think I reread it once. Yeah, once. But I plan on rereading it again, and it was just so good. I am glad that I read the trilogy when I did, and that this was coming out shortly after, because I don't think that I would have been able to wait for this book for as long as it took to come out. That is my list of top 10 books / series of 2021. Some of them are really obvious, some of them really surprised me. I wasn't expecting to love those books as much as I did, so it's always really cool to reflect back on the year and see what were my top books of that year, and these ones are squarely it. Now, if you have any of these books on your list, please feel free to let me know down below what you loved about them, and if you have any other books that obviously aren't on this list but that might be on your favorites list, definitely let me know about them down below, because I love getting book recommendations, and I would love to hear what your favorites are, because maybe I will give them a shot as well. If you like this video, please click that like button. That really does help me out. And if you like my content and you want to see more from me, please don't hesitate to subscribe.